In 1991, in the quiet and serene town of Myers, California, nestled south of Lake Tahoe, the Dugard family was living an idyllic life. Their decision to move away from the bustling streets of Los Angeles was driven by a desire for a safer, more tranquil environment. Jaycee's was a lively 5th grader. Her world mainly revolved around school, her mother Terry Probyn, and her half-sister Shauna. Her biological father was not very close to her, but she had Carl Probyn, her stepfather, who filled that gap with love and care. June 10th, 1991, marked the fateful morning when Jaycee's idyllic life shattered. Dressed in pink, she walked to her school bus stop, but her world was violently upended. A grey car pulled up and terror ensued. A man stunned her into unconsciousness while a woman took her away. Jaycee's stepfather, Carl Probyn, watched helplessly from their home, pursuing them on a bicycle but couldn't catch up. Some classmates witnessed the abduction, but their descriptions of the culprits were vague. For 3 harrowing hours, Jaycee's was driven away, drifting in and out of consciousness, gripped by fear and threatened with attack dogs if she tried to escape. Law enforcement was alerted, initially suspecting Carl and Jaycee's biological father, Slayton. However, Carl's polygraph cleared him, and Slayton was unaware of his daughter's existence. A sketch of the woman launched an investigation. Jaycee's story became a national saga, uncovering depravity hidden within an apparently ordinary backyard compound, a tale of captivity, resilience, and an unrelenting quest for the truth. In a matter of hours, the case garnered widespread attention from the national media, and an enormous number of volunteers came forward to assist in the hunt for Jaycee's. Every community resource was fully exploited, and thousands of leaflets and posters were sent out across the country. As a show of solidarity for her and her family, the town was decorated with pink ribbons, her favorite color. Her mother organized volunteer labor and fundraising to create Jaycee's Hope, an organization that raised money for supplies for posters, envelopes, and even shirts, sweatshirts, and buttons to sell. A sizable reward was proposed and attached to the flyers and posters for information that led to her discovery. The local band Perfect Circle even wrote a song to celebrate her excellent vision. The case was highlighted on America's Most Wanted on June 14th, providing additional details about her case to the American public. The family persisted in hoping that Jaycee's was still alive, and this went on for months on end and then years on end. Fortunately, or unfortunately, they were unaware that Jaycee's had been abducted by Nancy and Philip Garrido, a couple of 60-year-old criminals who were quite cruel. Philip has a lengthy past of abduction that spans several years. His father claims that following a teenage motorbike accident, he had a significant transformation and started abusing drugs, primarily meth and LSD. Philip was accused of abusing a 14-year-old girl in 1972. However, he was cleared when the victim declined to appear in court. He soon wed his first wife, whom he frequently mistreated and tormented. In 1976, he kidnapped her and returned her home when she tried to leave him. He also kidnapped Catherine Calloway, a 25-year-old. He took her to a warehouse in Reno, Nevada, and spent the next 5.5 hours forcing himself on her. When the police arrived, they found his automobile parked in the warehouse lot with the door's latch smashed. Philip welcomed them as they proceeded to look into it. Then Calloway screamed out for assistance from behind him. Both state and federal courts charged him with crimes after his arrest. After the court ordered a psychiatric evaluation, he was classified as a long-term drug user and sexual deviant. In a courtroom, it was believed that the medicines may have played a particularly important role in his deviation. He even admitted to frequently touching himself while parking outside elementary and high schools. After being found guilty in 1977, he quickly started serving the remaining of his 50-year sentence. He met Nancy, a woman about his age, while she was visiting her uncle while incarcerated. In 1981, while he was in prison, they fell in love. His release occurred in 1988. After serving 11 years, he moved into his aging mother's house and was regularly visited by parole officers while wearing a GPS ankle tracker. He visited his former victim soon after his release in order to harass her. Although his parole officer was notified of this, no action was taken. He eventually began living with Nancy, and the two eventually tied the knot. Nancy reportedly went out and looked for Jaycee's. Not long after Jaycee's arrived at his estate, Philip made her take a shower with him. Up until now, she had never seen a man in the nude. A week later, she was still in handcuffs when he finally did what he wanted with her. For a week straight, She was confined to these handcuffs, and her only human contact was with Philip. After that, she was given a TV and a pail for a toilet. She wasn't allowed to watch the news because they were afraid she might watch the announcement that people were looking for her. She moved into a bigger room next door after a month and a half, but she was still shackled to a bed. Philip told Jaycee's that she had come to help him release his frustration because society had abandoned him, and that demon angels had let him kidnap her. When he made Jaycee's dress up and cut out figures from filthy magazines, he would go on benders and get really high. He tried to bring her along to hear the sounds in his thoughts. Philip eventually started to think of himself as a godly prophet. His drug-fueled vendors would stop, and he would have severe breakdowns where he would go from crying and apologizing to threatening to sell Jaycee's to someone else so they could imprison her. He formally presented Jaycee's to his wife Nancy, who brought her a plush animal and some chocolate milk after several months of almost total seclusion. Nancy even offered her a heartfelt apology for kidnapping her. After a while, Jaycee's developed a strange sort of liking for her and even yearned for her approval. But Nancy was every bit as bad as her husband. She would frequently swing erratically between total brutality and maternal love. She blamed Jaycee's for the entire situation and was envious of her. The Garrido would carry on targeting other kids during this period. They would use their car to record kids at parks and schools, and they would even invite young girls to join their band. Later, this evidence was made available to the courts on video. Nancy observed a young girl being invited to join their band and asked to pose in a manner that raised concerns. The harrowing saga of Jaycee's unfolded in a nightmarish sequence of captivity, shedding light on her remarkable endurance and resilience. Nancy Garrido, taking over the role of captor during her husband Philip's frequent incarcerations, subjected numerous young girls to the same horrors Jaycee's had endured. Shockingly, parole authorities had visited the family's house multiple times but failed to detect Jaycee's presence despite her being just meters away. She described Nancy as a depraved, cruel warden during her years of captivity. While held against her will, Jaycee's received 2 kittens which mysteriously disappeared. She was given a journal but had to tear out pages bearing her true name, never to use it again. 3 years into her ordeal, Philip's release briefly eased her suffering, but she remained confined. Her first proper meal arrived on Easter in 1994, a grim occasion as her captors suspected she might be pregnant, having been held captive since age 11. Lacking formal education, she prepared for childbirth by watching TV shows, while her mother tirelessly searched for her. A potential sighting at a gas station briefly raised hope, but it wasn't investigated. Jaycee gave birth to her first child in August 1994, followed by another in 1997, all while enduring her captor's prolonged cruelty. She had a chance encounter with a neighbor, Patrick, but Philip quickly intervened, reinforcing her isolation. Gradually, she gained limited communication, worked as a graphic artist, and was even allowed to answer the door for visitors. In a bizarre turn of events, Philip Garrido submitted a disturbing essay to the FBI in 2009, leading to a background check that revealed his criminal record and parole status. Subsequent police involvement uncovered Jaycee's and her daughters, who exhibited strange behavior after years of isolation. The case began with a parole violation and finally culminated in Jaycee's emotional reunion with her mother. Jaycee and her family embarked on a healing and reconnecting journey. Despite the emotional bond that had formed between her and Philip, she gained formal custody of her daughters, and the process of recovery commenced. Investigations around the Garrido property unearthed disturbing evidence implicating Philip as a suspect in the 1988 disappearance of Michaela Garrett. The Jaycee Dugard case remains a shocking testament to the human spirit's resilience in the face of unimaginable adversity. Philip Garrido's attempt at redemptive transformation, framed by his daughter's births, unraveled when his records exposed discussions about schizophrenia and sound manipulation to control his violent tendencies, unveiling his erratic behavior and delusions. Initially pleading not guilty, the Garridos eventually switched to guilty pleas. Philip was sentenced to 43 years and Nancy to 36 years. The Jaycee Dugard case is a haunting reminder of suburban horrors. Jaycee received a $20 million in settlement due to authorities' oversights that could have saved her. Her resilience shone through as she authored books, demonstrating incredible forgiveness and strength, echoing the importance of under supervision. What do you think of our video? Let us know in the comments below, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel for more videos.